Welcome back, Grim Histories fans. Tonight, we delve into the darkest corners of history, into a realm where pain is silent, where the only weapon is a featherlight touch, and where the screams are muffled by the very nature of the torment. We're talking about torture, yes, but not the kind you expect. Forget the rack, the thumbscrew, the Iron Maiden. Today, we unravel the chilling history of tickling. Think about it. Tickling, a childish game, a playful gesture, something that evokes laughter, right? Wrong. For centuries, tickling wasn't a source of amusement, but a carefully calibrated instrument of unimaginable cruelty. A method of extracting confessions, breaking wills, and inflicting agonizing pain without leaving a single bruise. The ultimate silent scream. Imagine this, a dimly lit dungeon, the air thick with the stench of mildew and fear. A prisoner, bound and helpless, their eyes wide with terror, not from the sight of a torturer's instruments, but from the anticipation of something far more insidious. A single feather, a playful touch, a relentless, maddening tickle that burrows into their flesh, not leaving a mark, but leaving an imprint on their soul. This wasn't just about discomfort. This was about breaking a person's spirit, driving them to the brink of madness. This isn't some fantastical tale spun from the darkest recesses of a fevered imagination. Historical records, though scattered and often veiled in euphemism, hint at the widespread use of tickling as a form of torture across various cultures and eras. From the ancient world to the medieval period and beyond, the seemingly innocuous act of tickling served a sinister purpose. The lack of physical evidence is, ironically, what made it so effective. No visible wounds meant no proof of torture. No visible signs to show to an inquisitor or a judge. But how could such a seemingly benign act be so devastating? The answer lies in the very nature of tickling. It's a paradoxical sensation. While it can elicit laughter, it can also trigger intense discomfort and even pain. The intensity of the sensation is directly related to the unpredictability of the touch. A constant, relentless tickle, strategically targeted at vulnerable areas, can become an excruciating ordeal, pushing the victim to their absolute limits. It's a violation of personal space, an invasion of the body that leaves the victim feeling completely helpless and exposed. Our journey into this grim history begins not in the medieval castles and dungeons we often associate with torture, but surprisingly, in ancient China and Rome. We'll uncover accounts of tickling used as punishment for the upper echelons of society in the Han Dynasty, a practice shrouded in the secrecy befitting its insidious nature, and in Rome, we'll explore the horrifying, almost comical, method of goat-tongue tickling, a particularly brutal variation that speaks volumes about the ingenuity of cruelty. But the medieval period holds its own unique horrors. The Church, the supposed bastion of morality and compassion, sometimes employed methods that would make even the most hardened torturer shudder. We'll uncover evidence, or at least tantalizing hints, that suggest tickling played a role in the Inquisition's arsenal of psychological torment. We'll explore how this seemingly innocuous act intertwined with the superstition and religious fervor of the era. Get ready, because the laughter of the damned is about to begin. The truth about the hidden history of tickling as torture is far more sinister and far more pervasive than you can ever imagine. Let's journey back in time, shall we? Forget the dusty tomes and the stuffy museums for a moment. We're going on a slightly ticklish adventure, exploring the surprisingly widespread historical use of tickling as a form of torture. And believe me, it's far more disturbing than your childhood memories might suggest. We've established the unsettling idea that tickling could be used as torture, but where did this bizarre practice originate? Where did the idea of using something so seemingly innocuous to inflict such profound pain and suffering take root? The answer, my friends, takes us on a transcontinental tour of imperial power, beginning not in the medieval castles of Europe, but on the other side of the world in the opulent courts of Han Dynasty China. While the specifics are shrouded in the mists of time and often obscured by the deliberate vagueness of historical records, tantalizing clues suggest that tickling was a method of punishment reserved for the highest echelons of society. Imagine a world where the ultimate humiliation, a violation of personal dignity so complete it could shatter one's spirit, was inflicted not with swords or whips, but with feather-light touches. The records are scant, fragmented whispers in ancient texts, but they paint a picture of a power dynamic as cruel as it is subtle. The elite, shielded by their position and wealth, could inflict this excruciating torment without leaving a single physical mark. No bruises, no scars, no visible wounds to betray their sadistic games. This is a crucial aspect of its appeal as a form of torture. It was the perfect crime, leaving no trace except the broken will of the victim. Now, let's fast forward to the Roman Empire, a civilization renowned for its brutality and its elaborate systems of punishment. While the Romans favored more dramatic displays of violence, the subtle art of tickling also found its way into their repertoire, albeit with a surprisingly goaty twist. Accounts, often tinged with dark humor by later writers, describe a method of torture involving goats. Yes, goats. Not just any goats, mind you, but goats with particularly long, coarse tongues. Imagine the scene, a hapless victim, bound and helpless, subjected to the relentless, rasping licks of a goat's tongue, a seemingly innocuous act that could rapidly escalate into an unbearable ordeal. The constant irritation, the unpredictable nature of the animal, the sheer indignity of it all. It's a chillingly effective method designed to break the spirit as much as the body. The choice of goats wasn't arbitrary. The Romans, practical as ever, likely chose goats for their availability, their inherent persistence, and the fact that their tongues, unlike human hands, could inflict prolonged torment without leaving obvious signs of abuse. Again, the lack of visible wounds was key. It allowed for the clandestine application of this form of torture, shielding the perpetrators from scrutiny and accountability. This method, like the Han Dynasty's subtle approach, underscores the chilling ingenuity behind this form of torture. It wasn't about the immediate physical pain, although that undoubtedly played a part. It was about the psychological torment, the relentless erosion of the victim's will, the utter humiliation of being broken by something so seemingly insignificant. It was a silent, unseen torment, a hidden cruelty that speaks volumes about the darker aspects of human nature. Welcome back, Grim Histories enthusiasts. We've journeyed from the opulent courts of Han Dynasty China to the surprisingly sadistic practices of the Roman Empire. But now, buckle up, because we're diving headfirst into the murky, medieval mire, a time when tickling wasn't just childish fun but a tool of terrifying power. This is where the history of tickle torture truly gets interesting. Let's set the scene. Europe, the High Middle Ages. Imagine a world steeped in superstition where the church held absolute sway, and the line between religious zeal and brutal oppression was often blurred. The concept of justice was flexible, to say the least. Public punishments were spectacles, designed to instill fear and obedience. And in this grim tapestry of medieval life, we find our unlikely protagonist, the tickle. Forget the playful prods of childhood. Medieval tickling was a calculated, systematic form of torture, often employed in the most chillingly unexpected ways. We're not talking about a few giggles. We're talking about prolonged, agonizing sessions designed to break the human spirit. Think of the relentless pressure of a feather against sensitive skin, the escalating intensity, the utter helplessness of the victim. It was a slow, insidious torment that left no visible marks, the perfect crime for a society where physical evidence was crucial. The Church, surprisingly, played a significant role in the evolution of this bizarre practice. While officially condemning torture, the reality was far more nuanced. Confession was paramount, and extracting information, especially concerning heresy, was a high priority. Tickling, with its ability to induce delirium and break down a person's mental fortitude, became a preferred method for prying secrets from suspected heretics, witches, or anyone deemed a threat to the established order. Imagine a scene in a dimly lit dungeon, the air thick with the smell of mildew and fear. A hooded figure, perhaps a monk or a member of the Inquisition, methodically applies pressure to the victim's solace, armpits, or other sensitive areas. The initial discomfort quickly escalates into excruciating pain, the victim's laughter morphing into a desperate, strangled cry. The goal was not simply to inflict pain, but to shatter the victim's will, to break them down until they confessed to whatever the Inquisitor desired. This wasn't some random, isolated incident. Historical accounts, while scarce, hint at the widespread use of tickling as a form of punishment and interrogation during the Middle Ages. The absence of physical scars made it an ideal method for those who sought to inflict suffering without leaving behind incriminating evidence. The subtle nature of the torture allowed for plausible deniability, a chilling aspect that underscores the insidiousness of the practice. Furthermore, the psychological impact of this type of torture was devastating. The victim's humiliation and loss of control were almost as significant as the physical pain. The laughter, forced or otherwise, served as a constant reminder of their powerlessness, a torment that lingered long after the physical sensation subsided. The very act of tickling, an inherently playful and intimate gesture, was twisted into a tool of brutal control, highlighting the dark side of medieval power dynamics. The line between jest and torture became horrifyingly thin. We're only halfway through this grim journey, and the tale of tickle torture is far from over. The next segment will reveal even more shocking details, demonstrating how this seemingly absurd form of punishment was intricately woven into the very fabric of medieval society. The air in the Inquisition chambers hung thick with the scent of incense and fear. Not the cloying sweetness of a church service, but a harsh, almost medicinal aroma designed to mask the stench of damp stone and something else. Something faintly metallic, tinged with the sickly sweet tang of sweat and terror. We've explored tickling as a form of torture in ancient civilizations, but its use during the medieval Inquisition adds a chilling new dimension. This wasn't just about extracting confessions. It was about breaking the spirit, about shattering the will, about forcing a surrender far deeper than the physical. This was about control. We've seen how the Romans used goats' tongues, and how the Han Dynasty employed tickling as a punishment for the upper classes, but the Inquisition took it further. They refined it. They weaponized it. They understood something crucial, that the human body, for all its resilience, has a breaking point. And sometimes that breaking point is not physical, but psychological. Imagine, if you will, the scene: a flickering candle casts long, dancing shadows across the cold stone walls. A hooded figure, his face obscured by darkness, leans over a bound prisoner. The prisoner, eyes wide with a terror that goes beyond mere pain, is suspended from the ceiling, their weight borne by ropes that dig into their flesh. This wasn't just the physical discomfort of the position. It was the vulnerability, the complete lack of control. The Inquisitor's hands moved deliberately, slowly, almost caressingly. But the touch is not gentle. It's precise, calculated. It's a dance of torment, a slow, excruciating degradation. He doesn't just tickle. He probes. He explores the prisoner's most sensitive areas, finding the precise pressure points that will elicit the most intense reaction. The laughter that erupts isn't joyful. It's a sound torn from the depths of despair, a desperate, involuntary release of tension. This wasn't about leaving physical scars. The beauty of this method, from the Inquisition's perspective, was its lack of visible evidence. No broken bones, no welts, no bruises. Just a shattered psyche, a broken spirit, a confession freely given, or so it seemed. The psychological torment was far more effective than any physical torture. The prisoner would confess to anything to make it stop, to escape the agonizing, relentless assault on their sanity. The records are scarce, deliberately obscured. The Inquisition was not known for its meticulous record-keeping when it came to methods that left no physical marks. But whispers persist, fragments of testimony, hints in the margins of forgotten documents. These scraps of evidence suggest that tickling in its various forms was a favored tool of the Inquisition, especially when dealing with those accused of heresy or witchcraft. The victims were often those deemed most vulnerable: women, the poor, the marginalized, those who had little power to cry out. The Inquisitors understood the power of prolonged, relentless torment. They knew that the human body can withstand a great deal of physical pain, but the mind, the spirit, is far more fragile. The laughter, the tears, the eventual breakdown, these were the signs of success. The confession was a mere formality, a confirmation of the victory already won. This wasn't merely torture. It was a form of psychological warfare, a carefully crafted strategy to break down the individual, to strip them of their dignity, their identity, their will to resist. The feather, the seemingly insignificant tool, became a weapon of immense power in the hands of the Inquisition. A weapon that left no visible scars but left an indelible mark on the soul. So, we've journeyed through centuries of suppressed giggles and forced mirth, witnessing the chilling evolution of tickling as a tool of torture. From the opulent courts of Han China to the dank dungeons of the medieval Inquisition, the seemingly innocuous act of tickling reveals a darker side of human history. But the story doesn't end with the fall of the Inquisition. The legacy of tickle torture, believe it or not, lingers even today. Let's consider the psychological impact. The effectiveness of tickling as torture lies in its ability to break the human spirit without leaving a single physical mark. This absence of visible trauma made it the perfect tool for those who wish to inflict pain and maintain plausible deniability. The psychological scars, however, could be profound. The complete loss of control, the utter humiliation, the lingering dread of the next bout of relentless tickling. These experiences could lead to lasting emotional damage, even mental instability. Think about the implications for interrogation. The lack of physical evidence made it difficult to prove torture had occurred. Victims, often broken and traumatized, might struggle to articulate their ordeal, leaving their tormentors free to continue their cruel practices. This chilling aspect of tickle torture highlights its insidious nature, a form of violence that operates in the shadows, leaving no trace but shattered minds. Furthermore, the very concept of tickling as torture challenges our understanding of power dynamics. It subverts the typical image of brute force. Instead, it relies on a perverse manipulation of vulnerability and intimacy. The torturer holds absolute control, reducing the victim to a helpless, giggling mess. This power imbalance is deeply unsettling, highlighting the insidious ways in which control can be exerted through seemingly innocuous acts. The historical record, though incomplete, reveals a chilling pattern. Accounts of tickling as a form of punishment and interrogation persist across cultures and eras. While we may find it difficult to comprehend the sheer cruelty involved, understanding this dark history allows us to recognize the subtle and often unseen forms of abuse that continue to exist today. The legacy of tickle torture isn't just about the past. It's a stark reminder of the potential for cruelty embedded within human nature. It serves as a cautionary tale, urging us to examine the power dynamics in our own lives, and to be vigilant against forms of abuse that might not leave visible wounds but inflict deep and lasting trauma. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that some of the most effective forms of torture are those that leave no physical evidence, leaving victims to grapple with the invisible scars of their ordeal in silence. The laughter, once a tool of torment, now echoes as a haunting reminder of a cruel and often forgotten chapter in human history. The absence of physical evidence doesn't equate to the absence of suffering. The laughter of the victim, forced and broken, becomes a chilling testament to the insidious power of this overlooked form of torture. The echoes of those forced giggles remain a sobering reminder of the lengths to which humans will go to inflict pain and control. The history of tickle torture is more than just a bizarre historical footnote. It's a chilling exploration of power, vulnerability, and the enduring capacity for human cruelty. So there you have it. A history of tickling, not as a playful gesture of affection, but as a horrifyingly effective method of torture. From the hushed chambers of Han Dynasty palaces to the dank dungeons of medieval Europe, the seemingly innocuous act of tickling became a tool of unimaginable cruelty. We've journeyed through centuries, witnessing its use by emperors, inquisitors, and common criminals alike, a silent torment that left no physical scars yet shattered the spirit. The goat-tongue method of the Romans, the whispers of tickling in the Inquisition's chambers, the chilling laughter echoing through medieval castles. These aren't just historical footnotes. They are chilling reminders of humanity's capacity for inventive cruelty. This isn't just a story about the past, though. It speaks to the enduring power of psychological manipulation. The lack of visible wounds, the seemingly absurd nature of the torture, made it particularly effective. It highlights the devastating effects of prolonged psychological trauma, a lesson that resonates far beyond the dusty pages of history books. We still struggle to understand and combat the insidious nature of psychological torture today. From sleep deprivation to sensory overload, the methods may have evolved, but the core principle remains the same: to break the human spirit without leaving a trace. The question remains, how much of this is truly documented fact, and how much is shrouded in the mists of legend and rumor? The scarcity of explicit records leaves us with unanswered questions, a chilling void where the truth may lie buried. Was tickling truly as widespread as some accounts suggest? Or did its infamy overshadow its actual usage? We may never know the full extent of its dark history. What are your thoughts? Do you believe tickling was truly employed as a form of torture as widely as suggested? Let me know your theories in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Grim Histories for more chilling tales from the darker corners of history. We'll see you next time for another journey into the grim and the gruesome.